sitting downtown. I've just gotten off work a few minutes ago, enjoying the sunshine. And last night I screened Solaris, which was the next film that I wanted to talk about in my little series. Solaris is based on a novel. I believe the author's name is Stanislaw Lem, a Russian writer. And it was already made into a film by Andrei Tarkovsky, but the film I'm talking about came out in 2002 and was directed by Steven Soderbergh. Stars George Clooney, who has been in, I think, a total of 5 Soderbergh movies at this point. So obviously they're very tight. And this definitely fits the pattern that I've established here. The difference being here, although it is science fiction, obviously, and a tragic romance, the romance part is actually over and done with before the story actually begins, before the film actually begins. We have a few flashbacks to happier days, but for the most part, it's pretty sad going, and definitely not a science fiction film with lots of really cool, neat stuff happening. You know, special effects, of course, but it's largely confined to one set, a single space station. The story is George Clooney is a psychologist, a therapist, basically. He has received a message from an old friend of his who is a scientist on board this space station that something very unusual has happened and that he needs George Clooney to come to the space station, which is orbiting this planet, Solaris, to see what's going on and deal with the situation. He is very vague about what's going on here. Clooney's character's name is Kelvin, and as it happens, Kelvin is also the name of the robot scientist who is the main character of the I, Robot short stories by Isaac Asimov. The character is also in the movie. She was played by Bridget Moynihan, but I felt that Lily Taylor ought to have played that character, actually. I thought she was well suited given the description. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. What happens is George Clooney's wife committed suicide some years ago. She suffered from anxiety and depression, I believe, and she swallowed a bunch of pills and died. When George Clooney goes to the space station, he finds that practically all the crew members are gone, except for 2. 2 of them have died under somewhat mysterious circumstances. One of them just disappeared, flat out. And the only 2 that are left are played by Jeremy Davies and Viola Davis. Viola Davis was nominated for Best Supporting Actor a couple years ago for appearing in Doubt. She played the mother of one of the students at the Catholic school. So what happens is they say, okay, George Clooney, thanks very much for coming, but you're not going to be able to deal with the situation still. Whatever it is that's happening to us starts happening to you as well. And when George Clooney goes to sleep that night, he dreams of his wife. He dreams of the first time he met her, the first time he spoke with her. And he also dreams that she's there on the space station with him. And when he wakes up, there she is. She's just there all of a sudden. And nobody has any explanation for it except that it might have something to do with the planet that they're orbiting. Because each of the astronauts got their own visitor from their own personal life, appearing to them suddenly as they wake up on this space station. Now, naturally, George Clooney is very disturbed by this because, like I said, his wife's dead. Viola Davis won't tell anyone who her visitor is. Apparently, that person is stashed away in her room. She won't let anyone in. Jeremy Davies, his brother, apparently, was his visitor, only he stopped appearing. And there's a little kid running around on the ship as well, who is the son of the scientist whom George Clooney got the message from in the beginning. He is dead at this point. He committed suicide. So here's the thing. What happens is as they start to figure out exactly what happened here, George Clooney realizes that the planet gave him a facsimile of his dead wife, a entity, a creature basically that resembles his wife and speaks like her and thinks like her, but is derived entirely from his memories. And after a while, the woman who looks like his wife, starts to wonder what she's doing there and why she can't remember arriving on the ship in the first place, and why it is she doesn't remember so much about her own past. And her memories don't consist of actual experience memories. Like, she remembers things, but she remembers them from his point of view, because her whole personality and her whole being is taken from his, from George Clooney's memory of her. And she's very, very disturbed by this. She doesn't know what to do. So as it goes on, it's basically a drama. It's a drama set in space, and it's a very, very serious film. It isn't my favorite out of the batch of films that I'm talking about here, particularly because it's just so very self-serious. There's a few moments of humor here and there, but for the most part, it's a pretty serious film. But I admire it. I think it's very good. It made my top 5 of 2002. It also reminds me of another film, mostly in tone, called The Fountain, which I'll be talking about in a later video. So anyway, that is... I forgot to mention in the earlier segment that I shot outdoors was the actress who plays Rhea, Clooney's late wife, and that's Natasha McElhone. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name, McElhone. She was in The Devil's Own in the late 90s with Harrison Ford and Brad Pitt, and she was in The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, and in Ronin with Robert De Niro. And she hasn't done a lot outside of that. She's in this Showtime series, Californication. She plays David Duchovny's ex-wife. She's a very striking-looking woman. She's Irish and English, I believe, but she speaks with an English accent normally. Or I guess she had sort of a brogue in Ronin. Yeah, she's very, very refined and, in a way, a little intimidating. She's very, very striking-looking. And one of the things that George Clooney's psychiatrist friend says at this party when he spots her across the room is, she's a bit tricky, but well worth it, so I've heard. In other words, she's really good in bed. Yeah, he basically just walks right up to her in this flashback without saying anything, pours her a drink, hands it to her, they toast, and the first thing she says to him is basically a challenge. Not to screw up the very first, conversation that they're about to have, because as soon as they see each other, they know that there's, something's going to happen between them. So that begins the first few years of their relationship, the happy part, until her emotional problems get more and more out of control, and things start going sour from there. But yeah, like I said, terrific film. I'm going to be doing more of these, of course, both this week and next. So I hope you'll tune in for that, and thanks very much for watching. See ya.